Hi! In one of my previous videos I showed you some DIY modifications into my Axial SCX24. The link to that video is in the description. Today, at your special request, I will make a step-by-step tutorial on how to make additional weights for the front and rear axle. There are two ways to make these weights, with or without a soldering iron. Let's start with the first scenario, no soldering. First you need to find a thin piece of a metal plate. I use a chocolate box. Then, using a scissors with a hard blade, you have to cut a proper shape, just like this one. You can use as many pieces as you want, but I suggest 14 grams if you have planned to use weighted wheels and about 20 grams if you want to stay with a light stock wheels. This is for the front axle, of course. Now you can join all pieces using an electrical tape. You need to make two pieces like that and join them using some metal strap, just like this one. Now you can attach a weight to the front axle using a zip tie. For the rear axle the procedure is similar, but the shape of the plate is different and it looks like this. The weight should be about 10 grams if you are going to use weighted wheels and about 16 grams if you want to use the stock wheels. Now let's go to the second scenario. This will require a soldering iron and a bit more effort, but the weights made this way will be stronger and will have an extra differential covers. First you need to find a copper plate. I use a plate of 1 mm thickness, but I think anything more than 0.6 mm should also be fine. However, to cut a 1 mm copper plate, you will need a very strong scissors, preferably something dedicated to cutting a steel. The shape of the front weight should look like this. Now you need to use pliers to form it in a desirable shape. And the final result should look like this. This piece doesn't weigh a lot yet, so we need to use more copper and solder it. You can cut more pieces from a copper plate or use an electrical cable. If you choose a cable, that's what I did, you have to remove the insulation and form the cable roughly into a shape of the weight. You need to cut the two small pieces, one for each side, and one bigger piece which will be mounted in the middle. Before you start soldering, you should sand copper parts a little bit and use some flux. This is very important because if you forget to use a flux, you probably won't be able to solder the parts. Because of the size of the parts, a small soldering iron is not enough and something bigger is needed. I use something like this, but the hot air station would be the best choice. I also suggest to use some kind of standing clamp or at least the pliers. First you should spread the solder on the clean copper. You can use a lot of it. It will make the next phase of soldering much easier. Also, do not forget to thin the wire. Now you can put the pieces together, but try not to overheat the surface, as if you do this, it will cause pieces that have already been soldered to fall off. This is how it should look like. You can add more tin if you want, and once you finish, use a metal file to give the weight a final shape. You can also drill a small hole on the bottom of the diff cover to allow water to drop. Now just paint the weight and attach it to the axle using a zip tie. For the rear weight the procedure is similar, but the shape is much simpler and it looks like this. The extra arms are not necessary here, but I added them to stabilize the cover a bit more and to prevent the zip tie against rubbing the rear shaft. If you like the video, give the thumb up and subscribe. If you don't like, well, just give the thumb down, but do not forget to leave some constructive comment, which could help to make my future videos better. Thanks for watching and see you next time.